Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this Virtual Leadership Summit event, which is dedicated to leading organizational change. My name is Andrea Cardillo, and I will be your facilitator for today's session. What will you need for this session? You will just need two white paper sheets or your own notebook, a pen, a pencil, or colors if you feel particularly creative, and very important, a quiet time and space to be fully present during our work. This webinar is recorded, and the bad news is that you won't be able to ask me questions online. The good news is that you can stop the recording in any moment and re-listen if you feel the need for more space or more time for your own reflection. The workshop is going to be experiential, so there's going to be some time and some space for your own work. This workshop has been thought for organizational leaders or team managers that are currently facing change in their organizations, or for consultants wanting to support their clients to understand what is really required for them in times of change. It is also for coaches wanting to support their clients to develop a clearer vision of what they want for their organizations in a time of change and for how they want to lead their organizations in a time of change. By the end of this workshop, you will have learned tools to activate a conversation in your team about the change you want to see at different levels. You will also make your personal assessment. You'll be able to understand where your organization is today against your change goals. And finally, you will have identified some priority areas to intervene to mobilize changing energies in your own organization. We're going to speak about change, and change management is one of the big topics in business today. The only stable things, many say, in our today's market is that everything changed. So change seems to be the only constant in our market and at some water level in our society. Many speak about managing change, but here I want to make a difference between the concept and the idea of managing change and of leading change. When we think about change management or managing change, our ideas go very quickly to processes, tasks, all the implementation phase. And the question here is about what are the actions that really need to be done in order to make the change real. On the other hand, when we speak about leading change, we get much more in touch with the values of change and the vision of change. Why is this important for us? Why is this compelling? And how can I create a compelling vision that enables people to buy in the change process, really motivates them to move towards the change objectives of our organization, feeling that there is benefit for them, there is a sense for them, and there is something meaningful in this direction. It's about why we do it more than about what we do. One of the most common writers and researchers in change of leading change or managing processes of change is Professor John Kotter. He has been identifying through his researches 8 main reasons why big and small organizations fail to produce the change they want to see. He identified things like allowing too much complacency or failing to create a powerful coalition, a powerful team leading change in the organization, but also underestimating the power of vision and under-communicating the vision itself, permitting obstacles to block the new vision, like incoherences within the organization, and failing to create some short-term wins that provide additional motivation to people and motivate people to stay on the change process and not drop off in time. And finally, some of the very common errors are things like declaring vision victory too soon or neglecting to anchor change in the company culture, which is, in other terms, stopping the change process before change has already become part of how we do things here. So what's the consequence of failing or falling in one of these errors, very common mistakes, is that from change, small and big organizations don't really um, don't really get all the benefit that they could. So of 100% of potential, they just get a small slice, which means strategies are maybe not implemented well, or acquisitions or mergings don't achieve the expected synergies or the expected level of synergy. Also, the engineering maybe take too long and it gets too costly. And naturally, um, it means also that quality programs don't deliver hoped for results. Such a big theme needed a very step-by-step process which could be followed through every organization. And this is what Kotter brought into the field, the business field, as his 8-step change management process. He suggests some 8 best practices really to get out of the change what we really want to have. Um, I think this may seem an intimidating list of actions or things to do, but in my experience, this is a very nice framework to activate a conversation within a board or an executive team that enables them to see what is really the change they want to see, what is their vision, and what are all the key areas and steps that need to be covered to make change reality. So if we transform the 8 steps of Kotter in a series of questions, they can be really helpful to activate a conversation with ourselves, but I would say even more creative and fun, a conversation in our teams. So step number 1 is about establishing a sense of urgency, which means really discussing what is the reason why we need to change. Why do we need to change here and now? What are the risks of not changing? And what could be the opportunities of making this change happen? Second step is creating a guiding coalition, which is really about who do we need to involve to make this change happen? What are the key persons we need to identify and that we need to have on board to motivate others and to let the vision really permeate the organization? And how can we make them work together as a team? How can we take some key persons from the organization and out of a group of different individuals create a team which is really driving change, leading change, but also modeling the change we want to see? Next step is developing vision and strategy. And here is really about what will the vision look like when it is implemented at every level of the organization. Really going into details and really starting to imagine what this is going to mean for us and what are different levels and layers of the organization that are going to be touched by change. How can we communicate the vision? That's the next step. And how can the guiding coalition be part of this communication with their behaviors? In other terms, how can the guiding coalition model the values and behaviors that will go together with change? Another very important part is gonna be what Kotter calls empower broad-based action. Here is about how can we remove all the obstacles and incoherences that may disempower new actions or people that want to make new action, and how can we, removing them, empower new actions? Generate short-term wins is another key step. Here it's about how can we plan and celebrate short-term wins. Some organizations, even if they are good at celebrating short wins, they not always plan short wins, but they are actually key and fundamental um, to enable people and the organization itself to develop a sort of sense of self-perceived efficacy, perceived self-efficacy, to better say. So really a sense of confidence that change is going to happen and that it is already happening step by step, and it is already leading to some wins. It's already bringing benefit. Okay, so this is going to be uh, building the confidence of the organization itself. Seventh step, how can we consolidate gains and produce more change? And here, once again, is about how can we reinvigorate change in time through implementing new processes or starting up new projects, or maybe even through new hires. And finally, how can we make sure that the vision is now part of how we do things? So how can we make sure that we don't stop as long as the change has not become almost an unconscious or a given for granted way of doing of how we do, uh, even given for granted a way of doing things in our organizations, but part of the style of our company, of the mindset of our company. Okay, now I hope this questions has already stimulated some thinking if you were applying them to your organization. But here is the first piece of work for you. We're gonna work in the next 20 minutes about, in particular, on two of these steps. First one of which is developing your vision, and the second one of which is identifying what are the obstacles in your organization today that are disempowering new actions, that are disempowering the change to happen. We're going to try and identify at what levels they are manifesting and what could you do to disable these obstacles and empower new actions for change. Naturally, vision and clarity about where we want to go is key. If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable. It's his famous speech of the Roman philosopher Seneca. So let's start really to getting our mind clear and our ideas clear about what is the change we want to see. Think about a change you want to see in your organization, your team, or your workplace. What is the main purpose of this change? What is making this change urgent and needed? You may want to take some notes just for yourself. And as you're taking some notes, I really want to invite you to use a little bit of your creativity and imagination and really try to position yourself in a future moment when the change you want to see has already become reality. If you can position yourself in that future, what do you see around you? Who is around you? What do you see around you? What do you hear around yourself? At looking and thinking what you see, what do you think about this change? What do you feel about the new situation? And once again, take some notes or draw a sketch of what's in your mind. And now come back to the present again and look once again at your notes or at the sketch you have just done. If you look at this, how clear are you about your vision for change? You may want to score your level of clarity, maybe in a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 is very high. How are you scoring yourself? How clear do you feel about your vision? Now, however you're scoring yourself, my hope is that by the end of this webinar, you could add at least one more point on your scale, which means my hope is that the next models and exercise will really help you to have higher clarity of the change you want to see, and also to have higher clarity of different level at which change happen. I've been speaking more than once about different levels and different areas where change may happen. And this is why when people think about change, or the people feel motivated to change their organizations, is naturally because they wanna see results, and they want to see different kinds of results. So the easiest part to think about, or the easiest part to see, is naturally what in our matrix is going to be in the quadrant of the outer and collective, which means at the systems level. So naturally, when we want to have different results, the first thing we think to do and we think to change in our organization is either technology or processes, or maybe the organizational chart. We think about new goals and new strategies to get there. We think about new informational systems, for example. Or we think about new performance management systems. And reality is that when we change systems, processes, and structures, the next thing that usually needs to change is the behaviors of individuals, because only when behaviors change we can have different kind of performances. And as we know, it doesn't matter how well a flow chart is designed or a new organizational chart is designed. Change is gonna A new organization or a new process is gonna work only if the change is walking on the change of real people, on the feet of real people. So if people are not really buying in the new system, if they are not buying in the new processes or the new roles and responsibilities, doesn't matter how well you design them. If behaviors you want to see are not there, they are never gonna show their full potential. Now, this is a little bit the visible part of the iceberg. So it's the outer, is what we can see and often what we can measure. But there is a big underwater part of the iceberg, which, in my experience, many managers or organizational leaders may fail to see at the first glance, or to include at a first glance in in their design for change or their vision for change. The point is here, for example, that one of the things that usually disable people to make new actions, or to fully buy in the new organization or the new systems, is that the new behaviors we ask them to do may be in a conflict or in some kind of incoherence with what is the current organizational culture or what is really valued in the organization at the moment. They can be somehow in contradiction uh, with the corporate mindset, with what we call the corporate mindset, which is the way we do things here. Or even worse, individuals may not find a match between what they want for themselves and what the organization wants from them. For example, the organizational goals or the new organizational behaviors that are asked that they are asked for, um, they don't really seem to bring any benefit to them in the way they work and in the way they interact, or in the way um, they produce or they add value both to the inner and outer clients. So when there is a clash of goals, or where there is a discrepancy between what the organization wants and what the individual wants, that's where you can have all sorts of blocks and resistances to change. Um, we can really use this matrix to try and get to work again, and try to see at these different levels, both inner and outer levels and individual and collective levels, how is your organization going? Now, before assessing how your organization is going, let's have a look at in detail at how you really want it to be when the change will be fully implemented. So, for example, how will your organization look like when the change will be fully implemented? Take a couple of notes. What will be the roles and processes? What will be different in the way you manage high and poor performances? And speaking about performances, what are the individual performances that will be required to make the processes work, to make the new organizational system work? What will be the individual behaviors that you want to see to really unlock the full potential of the new systems, the new processes, or the new organization? What new skills will people involved need to demonstrate in order to make things work at 100% of their potential? And in order these skills and behaviors to be developed and implemented, what will you have to truly value? What will you have to truly value in your organization? What's going to be important and appreciated in your organization? What will have to change in the corporate mindset, in the corporate culture? What will have to change in the way you do things here? And how will individuals involved in change benefit from the change? What will they think and feel from changing? What will they believe about themselves and the others? Now, a really easy way to use the descriptive overview of the different levels of change in your organization and transform them in a way to activate a conversation, first of all with yourself, but also with your team about where are you now against your change objectives, is just using the four quadrants to score in a scale from 1 to 10 where do you think that your organization is now against your change objectives. You can have a 10 as the change is today fully implemented, and a 1 is a change now is just an idea in my mind, but no real step has been taken yet. So if you think about it, where would you score your organization in all of the four quadrants? Now, this is what you may have. And actually, this graph is the result of a conversation I had with an executive team uh, of one of my client organizations. Here you could see, for example, that the first area to have a high score uh, is naturally the systems area. So the client was implementing a new technology and therefore um, had to change uh, processes and introduce new roles in their organization. And here is where they are. They feel they've done already quite a bit of work, still not 100%, so it's still not a 10, but they are definitely on the right way. Uh, it's a bit different if you move to the collective and inner area, which is a bit more about the mindset, uh, as well as the inner and the individual and outer area. In both these cases, there is more of an intermediate score because even if the new technologies and processes have been implemented in large part, there still hasn't been that cultural shift or that shift in mindset that then enables new behaviors or different kind of behaviors. So the performances of the individuals are still not what they expect to see. And part of it, and we go to the last quadrant, the inner and individual quadrant, and part of it is because um, in the communication of the vision, um, many individuals involved in the change still don't really understand or can't fully grasp why it is so important to work in a different way and how they can benefit of the new way of working, uh, as well as how can other people within the organization or other kind of stakeholders like clients have the maximum benefit of the new system which has been implemented. So there is still a bit of work to do about kind of squeezing their vision in a 5-minute speech and letting it really circulate and permeate the different layers and the different parts of the organization. Now take a step back from the work you've done. And my invitation for you is really at thinking about what do you notice about what might be holding your organization back. If you look back at your graph, what are the quadrants that score really high and the quadrants that score not so high? And thinking about it, what shift in one quadrant would liberate most potential? What is the quadrant where if you could invest 20% of all your energies, this will bring you the 80% of results? Now, we started with the 8 steps Kotter's model uh, and with the 4 quadrants for an holistic approach to envisioning change, as well as scoring yourself and your organization in the 4 quadrants. So, how can you use these models in your organization? What are ways you could use them, and what are the purposes you could use them for? Here is my answer. This is how I use them. But actually, you could find much more creative and engaging ways than I do. So my invitation is once again uh, to play with them and try them out and have fun if you can, and try and be creative with them. So I usually use them to envision change or to activate a conversation in teams about change processes, or assessing reality versus change objectives, and finally, enabling team to identify inner or outer obstacles to change. And as we're moving towards the end of this webinar, my invitation for you is to think back at how you scored yourself in terms of clarity in the beginning of the workshop, and now score yourself again. How clear do you feel now about the change you want to see in your organization? And maybe what would you need in order to feel even clearer? What do you consider your key insights from this webinar? And how could you make use of these insights in your organization? What actions do you feel ready to take to mobilize energy in your organization and facilitate change? Now, I'm aware that in this case, there's not going to be a chance to have an online conversation between us, even if I would love to hear some of your answers. But exactly because I would like to hear them, please, if you want to go on with the conversation, feel totally free to make contact with me. This is my email address, andreas@performancecoach.com. Feel free to make contact, and I'll be happy to go on with our conversation and deepening the tools and the models according to what you feel you may need for yourself and your organization. In the end of this webinar, I really want to thank you very much for having been present, for having engaged with our models and with our work. And I really hope that now the port you're going to land to feels a bit clearer, as well as I wish you not only to be moved by the waves of change, but to serve the wave of change and get the best out of it for yourself and your organization. Thank you once again, and goodbye.